So we had a pastor's forum last week, talking about from a pastor's perspective why Christians need to get out and vote, and specifically cast their vote for Mitt Romney instead of President Obama. But women is the other issue, because when you look at the polls, you can see that, for example, women voters were trending toward President Obama big time up until the debates just a few weeks ago. As a matter of fact, one poll had it as high as an 18-point gap for President Obama. What happened was the debates took place. I think a lot of women voters in America looked at Mitt Romney unfiltered and saw him basically the way that he actually presents himself instead of the way that he's been characterized by much of the media and much of the attack ads against him. And so consequently, the female gap narrowed quite a bit. Didn't narrow all the way, but it narrowed quite a bit. So the women vote is still very critical as well. And that's why we're having a women's forum today. I'm joined in studio by a whole group of ladies, and it's like I'm the only guy here. So
Larry's behind you.
Well, that's right. We do have Larry, our tech guy, and our photographer guy. But here's who we have in studio with us now. We have Sharon Williams, who is she's been a Michigan resident since 2002. She's a substitute teacher in South Lyon. We have with us Angela Kolbeck, who is the wife of Michigan State Senator Patrick Kolbeck. We had Senator Kolbeck here in studio with us just not too long ago talking about the proposals. We have Pastor Connie Lelisher, who, along with her husband Scott, pastor the very prominent Zion Christian Church in Troy, here in the Detroit area. And also invited to this women's forum a lady that I work with every day, my producer of 7 years, Jan Fox. And ladies, thank you so much for coming in studio with us today. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Great to see all of you. First, if we could, how I want to do this, I'm going to start at one end and kind of go down the line, give each one of you a chance to share some of your own personal thoughts. And then for the rest of it, we're not going to do like officially, let me ask you a question and you respond, let me ask you a question, you respond. As much as I cringe saying this, let's pretend it's like The View, where everybody just kind of talks. Chime in with whatever you want to chime in with, seriously.
I'm Elizabeth. Hey, I wanted to be her.
She called Elizabeth first. Yeah. Okay, who's going to be Joy Behar? So that's how we're going to do it for the most of the afternoon. So do not be shy at all. Just chime right in with whatever you want to talk about. But first, let's kind of do this in somewhat of a formal, structured way to get it started. Angela, let me start with you. Tell us, if you would, why, from your perspective, why you think this election is so important and how you're looking at it.
I actually am looking at it from 3 points why I think it's critical that Mitt Romney and Ryan need to win this. And the number one thing is I'm born-again Christian, and I believe in the biblical principles of pro-life and definition of the marriage between a man and a woman, as well as freedom of religion. And I believe that Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan will put those biblical principles back into place. The second thing is the economy. I'm very afraid of the fact that we have a $16 trillion debt, and that right now it's projected to go to $20 trillion if he gets another 4 years. I'm very saddened by the fact that our unemployment rate is so high, and I'm saddened by the fact that 50% of the college kids cannot find a job, and basically that we're being pushed into food stamps and poverty. And then the third thing that really makes me want to vote for Mitt Romney is I think it's absolutely, my background is as a physician, it's absolutely critical that we get rid of Obamacare. We have to get rid of Obamacare. It's a cancer on our nation. So those are the 3 reasons.
Okay. And Sharon Williams. Sharon, if you would, just your perspective, why is this election so important to you, and how do you tend to look at it?
Well, first of all, I bleed red, white, and blue, and I love my country, and I've studied the history of my country extensively, and I know that we were started from a biblical perspective, and our founding fathers were overwhelmingly in support of the things of faith, and they espouse those things of faith. And if righteousness exalts a nation, we need to have policies and principles that espouse those concepts of morality, of liberty, and freedom. In addition to that, I just know that there's a price to be paid. We will all stand in front of the Lord and give an account for how we align ourselves. And if we have those who want to implement ungodly principles, I don't think my country will survive. Right. I, too, share the economic concerns, how so many people now are dependent upon the government. And one of the founders, I can't remember his name, he did say that when all power is drawn to Washington, that we will be just as corrupt as that which they left in England. And The states' rights, 10th Amendment, I think has been abolished, and I want to see that restored. In addition to that, I think God's word is the benchmark for us as Christians, and if we don't align ourselves with that which is godly, I think that my country will go down into the ash heaps of history, just as Rome.
I had to ask you something else, Sharon, as well, a unique perspective that you can bring to this. I don't need to tell you, African Americans overwhelmingly go for President Obama. They go for Democrats. Of course, as an African American lady, I'd like to get your perspective on why you feel this is. A new poll came out just recently showing that among Protestant Christian, I don't know why they did Protestant, not Catholic, but among Protestant Christian African Americans, 97% said that they were voting for President Obama. 97% of African American Christians. Why?
I wish I had the answer to that question. I have talked with my family members extensively about this. I have presented them with scripture. I don't expect secularists to understand my perspective. I would understand those who read the same words in scripture that I do to understand it. When you look back at history, during Reconstruction, over 2,000 elected officials were black, and they were all Republican. And it was the Democrats who put into place those laws that restricted with the Jim Crow laws that restricted the election of blacks into positions of leadership at the state and federal level.
Right.
When you look throughout history at the Democrat Party, it has worked to oppress the blacks. Even the Voting Rights Act of '64, that was authored by Republicans. None of the Democrats hardly supported that. So I don't know. I can't tell you. I really can't. If I knew the answer to that, I would tell you, but I just don't understand it.
Okay. Hang on just a moment. We'll pick up the conversation in a couple minutes, and Connie will talk with you, Jan will talk with you, and then we'll just kind of open up the forum, and we'll talk about several different issues in this election. A little bit later on, we will open up the phone lines and give our listeners a chance to call in and chime in and just ask whatever questions you would like of the panel. It's the Women's Forum edition of the... Connie, let me toss it to you. In this particular election, why is this election so important, and what's passionately driving how you look at this election?
Well, I agree with Angela and Sharon. You have the economy, the health care. For me, one big issue is the right to life, because everything starts with the right to life. It's fundamental, and what will that happen without the life? What good will rights do or rights be? If we fight for our rights, we have to have the fundamental right to life. And for me, it's about the Bible. And in Scripture, it says, Genesis 1:27, God created man in his own image. In the divine image, he created him. Male and female, he created him. It keeps saying created. And I believe that we were created in our inmost being, and he knit us together in our mother's womb. So I believe that life starts at conception, and Romney believes that as well. So for me, that we meet on some very important playing fields, and right to life is one of them. Same-sex marriage, that's a big thing for me. And then religious freedom, obviously, is going to be something that I'm concerned about, not only for me, but my children have a desire to be in ministry. So what is that going to look like in the years to come if we don't stand up and fight for freedom of speech and freedom of religion in our society? And in 2007, Romney stated in a speech that freedom requires religion and religion requires freedom. And so I stand with him on some very integral areas that are personal belief to me and to my husband. Now, I speak for myself. I know that there are some people in our church who will go along with the Democratic issues and would vote Democratic. But I personally, along with my husband, we choose to believe that Romney is the guy for the president.
Sure. And you mentioned the abortion thing, and in just a few minutes we're going to dive into abortion as an issue, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different issues, obviously. Let me toss it over to Jan Fox, my producer of 7 years. Jan, I know you're very passionate about this election as well. Why is this election so important to you?
When I came here 7 years ago, my head was in the sand about politics. I didn't think it had anything to do with my life, my children's life, or now my grandchildren. And working for you and listening to you, wow, my eyes have been opened at how important our leader for our country is. And I know that he is not a Christian, that he is a Mormon, but I do not believe that, and maybe I'm going to get in trouble for this, that Obama's a Christian either. The Bible says you see, you know them by their fruits. And Obama has not proven to me in 4 years that he is a Christian, that he is going to follow biblical, standards. He's, for abortion. He is for same-sex marriage, and he is taking our country to a lower level. That's how I believe. I have grandkids. I'm concerned for them. My children are now married and out of school, but my grandkids, and I do some of the news research. And when I go to news after news after news page, and I see the rights being taken away from even Christian school teachers, what they can and can't say in the school. My little grandson's too. What is his future going to be if we continue to vote in leaders that are going to take our religious freedoms away from us? So I'm very passionate about that. I am passionate about what my president's going to do for me as a single woman, and and equality in the job, and wanting to be paid is just as much as the man that has the same qualities as me. And he has shown that when he became the governor of Massachusetts. He looked at his cabinet and he noticed there was no women, and all men. And he asked, "Hey, what is the deal here?" And they said, "Well, we just find all qualified men." And he said, "Well, I'm sure there's qualified women out there." Well, they went out to women organizations and they found some women that were qualified. I mean, they looked in the folders, and he got lambasted for saying, "I got binders full of women." Come on. He did not have binders full of women. He had resumes,
yes.
people.
I got
resumes.
a studio full of women.
Yes. Yeah, Bob's got a studio. Seriously. He had resumes. He respects women. And the liberal left is going to try to bring him down because they can't find anything else wrong with him. All right, I'm done.
All right. So let's do this. You binders full of women
Yes.
now. So, hang on. A couple minutes from now, we're going to start going through the issues one at a time. We're going to hit abortion head on, and we're going to hit a lot of other issues. We are going to hit same-sex marriage. We're going to hit the economy and jobs. We're going to hit women as well. I shouldn't word it that way. We're going to hit women. But we'll talk about matters of faith. We'll talk about Mormonism. I mean, we're not going to sweep anything under the rug here, okay? So we're going to start diving through these issues. And folks, a little bit later on, we are going to open up the phone lines and give you a chance to call in as well and join the discussion. More with Sharon Williams, Angela Kolbeck, Connie Lalisher, and Jan Fox on this Women's Forum edition of the Bob Dutko Show. More 2 minutes from now. Issues one at a time. Let's dive into the issue of abortion. This to me is a serious issue. For the life of me, I do not understand how Christians can vote for President Obama when it comes to the issue of abortion. But I think we need to establish a couple of things, and I want to get your take on this and just chime in. On one hand, we have President Obama, who is not just pro-choice, as they say. He has the record as the #1 most pro-abortion activist president in the history of America. He has done more to advance and promote abortion than any other president, more than Bill Clinton, more than Jimmy Carter, more than anybody. Even when he was in the state of Illinois, the state legislature, he voted no on the Born Alive Infant Protection Act, which said if a baby survives an abortion, you have to provide medical care to that baby. He voted no in favor of letting that baby die. Even in the U.S. Senate, not one Democrat voted no for that on the federal level. Ted Kennedy, Hillary Clinton, Al Gore, they at least voted yes. Barack Obama voted no. This is how rabidly pro-abortion this man is. Mitt Romney, I don't think he's as pro-life in his heart as, we'll say, a Rick Santorum is. But Mitt Romney has shown himself to be pro-life somewhat, and he's already declared that he will, in fact, be a pro-life president, and that he will, he said on day one, he will sign an executive order reinstating the Mexico City policy of Ronald Reagan, which declares our tax dollars no longer have to pay for abortions overseas. Barack Obama, in his first week as president, signed an executive order undoing the Mexico City policy, so we've been paying for abortions in other countries for the last 4 years. So Mitt Romney is fairly strongly pro-life. Not as pro-life as you can get, but he's fairly strongly pro-life. Barack Obama is as hardcore pro-abortion as you can get. To me, it's pretty cut and dry.
Well, Bob, you sold two of my talking points, the Mexico City policy and the Born Alive Protection Act.
Let me look at your notes, see if I can steal something else. Hold on. Okay.
But, as an African-American, one of the things that stands out to me is the origins of Planned Parenthood. When
Right.
Margaret Sanger organized that group, it was just to do away with, or it was eugenics. The blacks were the weaker race, and we had to do away with them. And there's a reason why most of these Planned Parenthood clinics are in minority neighborhoods.
Right.
And how anyone, especially someone who's black and a Christian, can support Barack Obama. I just don't understand it.
I don't either.
It baffles
Well,
me.
but you look at Planned Parenthood. I mean, come on. Republicans are always accused of being so racist, right? But if you turn this around, if Republicans were the ones who were in bed with Planned Parenthood, the largest abortion provider in the country, Margaret Sanger, as you mentioned, the founder of Planned Parenthood, she incorporated a project called the Negro Project.
Oh, yeah.
The purpose of the Negro Project, this, was to exterminate the black race. She even spoke at KKK rallies. Most people don't even know this. And to this day, Planned Parenthood still calls their annual award the Maggie Award in honor of Margaret Sanger. So if it were Republicans in bed with the abortion industry, and the abortion industry, this, targets African American babies more than anybody else. I mean, African Americans are 12 to 13% of the population, but they're 36% of abortions, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. Over 70% of Planned Parenthood clinics in black neighborhoods. I mean, my goodness, this would be considered racist if it were anybody other than the Democrats.
Bob, I think part of the problem is, and I've had people that voted, very good Christians that voted for President Obama in 2008, and they said it doesn't matter who is the president as far as abortion, the number of babies that die is the same. And you just pointed out the Mexico City policy. In January 23rd of 2009, President Obama signed the executive order that now allows public funds to go to groups that provide and perform abortions in other countries. And I think probably those same Christians with their eyes are probably, I think, opened up now with Obamacare and with the abortion provisions in there. And they probably see the Catholic Church fighting, the abortion measures. They got Hobby Lobby now that's sitting out there and they're refusing to go ahead and have abortion-inducing drugs provide their employees with those policies. But I truly believe there are a lot of good Christians out there that they just don't really think much is going to change in the number of unborn babies murdered with who's president. So I think their eyes need to be opened up.
Let's address that, because there are people that say, oh, come on, George Bush was president for 8 years. We still got Roe v. Wade. We still got abortion. So does it really make that much of a difference?
It starts in the churches.
Yes.
At the education.
Amen,
Because
sister.
I volunteered at a crisis pregnancy center in Dothan, Alabama for years. And those girls would come in and we'd have to talk to them and give them a pregnancy test. And they didn't know that they were going to get the gospel while they were waiting for the results. But that's what I did. And they'd look at me and go, how can you tell me that I can keep my baby and I'll be okay? I said, because I was 15 when I had my daughter. And she's 30, well, she's 32 now, but she, was that in her 20s then. And I did it. And you can do it. And you can get an education, but it's education. And the church has to do it. I think when you watch that Silent Scream film and those girls, because I wouldn't show them the hardcore film until they were just like, I'm getting an abortion, I don't care what you say. And then I'd let them watch that baby being taken to pieces out of the womb. Let me tell you, a lot of babies are alive today because those girls, you have to show them the hard facts. And I don't think the church is doing a good enough job educating. It's not talked about in the pulpit. There's no ministries in the church for young girls that are pregnant and helping them and showing them, we'll take care of you. Keep your baby. Even we've got Bethany Christian Services. Put the baby up for adoption. Give it a better home.
What about the argument, though, that Mitt Romney isn't going to change any of that, because what difference does it make? People go, oh, Republicans, Democrats, it's all the same. Abortion is still legal. Roe v. Wade is still the law of the land. And so is it really that much of a difference between the two? What about the people that claim that?
Well, the president is not a czar and he's not a dictator, not until we got this one almost. But you have to have the support of the House and of the Senate. And if you don't have that, you're not going to get anything passed legislatively, because a veto-proof majority. I think that makes a difference.
However, we do have Romney would put back in the Mexico City policy, and we no longer would have our public funds being shifted to other countries to go ahead and abort those babies. We'd have Obamacare repealed, and with the repealing of Obamacare, we would have not these abortion-inducing drugs. Definitely the number of abortions would go down, and the pro-life Christians have to understand that with Governor Romney in, there are going to be less babies aborted. They have to understand that.
Right. Well, and I would argue as well, you not only have the Mexico City policy, which that does matter, you do also have Obamacare and the HHS mandate. That goes down, okay? You're not going to have these abortifacient drugs that are required and mandated by insurance companies and by companies. But you also have the U.S. Supreme Court. I mean, let's face it, you can tell me there's not a difference in presidents. You have John Roberts and Sam Alito, two strongly pro-life judges, even though John Roberts, my eyes still twitching over the Obamacare thing. But still, as it relates to pro-life, they're both strongly pro-life. They were put there by George Bush. You have Sonia Sotomayor and Elena Kagan, who are strongly pro-abortion, and they were put there by Barack Obama.
That's right.
Mitt Romney has already declared, when he was asked, what kind of Supreme Court judges will you put on the bench? His words were, I'll put judges in the mold, his words, in the mold of Thomas Alito, Scalia, and Roberts. Okay, those are his words. Also, the president puts about 200 judges on various federal and appellate courts all across the country every term. President Obama's already done over 200. The overwhelming majority of them are pro-abortion judges. Mitt Romney won't do 100% pro-life judges, but the overwhelming majority of them will be pro-life conservatives. So you can't tell me that just because we can't get Roe v. Wade overturned doesn't mean that there's not efforts that can be made.
Right. And I believe that that's going to be very important in the coming years is the federal judges. Because what we've seen with the same-sex marriages, 6 states, and all of them have been legislated from the bench. It hasn't been the popular vote of the people that have said, yeah, let's go ahead and vote same-sex marriages in as legal. And so for me, that's a huge concern that we get in federal judges that will be pro-life. Right. But I agree with Jan. She was talking about the church. I look at the horizon, and then I look at what is going on in the politics, studying it, looking at it, and trying to be educated and making the right decisions, and obviously trying to encourage people who come to us and say, what is this? Tell us scripturally what we should do. The hope is in Jesus. Because God's going to be in control no matter who wins this election. God's going to be in control, and things are, God will watch out, protect His people. I think we need to engage, not only in this election, but as a local church, engage in our communities. Because the women overwhelmingly, since the 80s, I believe, have voted Democrat because they feel the security of the government watching over them. Because in the 80s, you can go back to the sexual revolution in the 60s and how that opened the door for sex outside marriage, and then the feminists with the abortion issue, and then divorce didn't have the stigma that it used to have. It was just an option. It became an option. So then you see women in the 80s just divorcing, and then the negative effects of those divorces began to happen. Their husbands were not or their ex-husbands were going on starting a new family, not supporting them, and they began to realize I could absolutely raise my child in poverty, because children from single-parent homes are 6 times more likely to be raised in poverty than children from an intact home.
That's a good point.
And something for me that I've noticed in our years of marriage counseling, that women's number one need is security.
Amen.
So if they feel, if they feel that their security is not being, or it's being threatened, then they're going to look somewhere. If it's not going to be in their husband, then it's going to be in the institution of the government. So I'm going to vote for them because they're going to be my safety net. Well, the government can help, but I'm telling you, your safety net is Jesus Christ. He's the one that will give you hope and a future, Jeremiah 29:11. And so that to me is the answer, is the local church, but that the Christians engage and become the ones that are the voices in our legislation, but through voting, first of all. And then there's stuff, the other gals can talk about other stuff that we can do.
Well, I'll tell you what, hang on just a second, because we'll pick it up and we'll go through some more issues in addition to abortion, some other issues, and we'll dive into that a couple minutes from now. More with the Women's Forum edition of the Bob Dutko Show 2012 election. Sharon Williams, producer. And we're talking about different issues. All right, let's deal with the war on women. Wait a minute here. Now, how can you women possibly vote for Mitt Romney? Because don't you know Mitt Romney and Republicans are launching a war on women. What do you say?
Oh, let me take that one, Bob.
All right, Angela Colbeck.
Yeah, I'm feeling the war on women every time I go to the gas station. I have to pay over $60 to go ahead and fill up my car there. When President Obama took office, gas was $1.84, I believe. Now it's been up to over $4, and it's $3.20, $3.30 right now. I haven't looked going past the gas station, but I consider that a war on the groceries are going up. Yes. More people are in poverty, more people are on food stamps, unemployment rate high. That's what I'm thinking is a real war on women.
You know what I don't get is the whole security thing that you guys are talking about. Women care so much about security. Why wouldn't women be concerned about the economic conditions, and don't they want the security of knowing that that their job and certainly their husband's job is secure and that the bills are going to be paid? And so when the president's economic policies have failed so many people, and you look at $16 trillion in debt now, wouldn't the security desire in women go, whew, this is not the man I want to stay in the White House?
Not to mention what he's doing toward the Defense Department and making us so weak.
Yes. Right.
You know, what is it? President Reagan said there's a strength in what does he say? Strength in
Reagan. He used to say peace through strength.
Peace through strength. Mm-hmm. Yeah, making us weak is going to make us more likely to be attacked by other countries. So, what really irritates me about going to the gas station and putting over $60 is that President Obama easily could have been doing something about that. He could stop blocking the Keystone Pipeline. Yeah. He could allow drilling on federal land so that we can have gas, so that we are no longer, our prices could go down, the price of food could go down, and we're not giving all our money to the Middle East, who are then using against us in terrorist attacks. I mean, this is just, it infuriates me every time, and I hope every time you guys go to the gas station, you're watching, is you're pumping in $60. It does not have to be that way. America does not have to be like this. It can be good again.
But don't you understand, though, if women aren't given for free by the government birth control, then that means there's a war on you. That's the Sandra Fluck argument.
I am so sick and tired of hearing about birth control. Go to Walmart and get it for $9.99. I don't want to hear about birth control anymore. I want jobs back. I want my kids to go ahead and have an educate. When they get out, they can have a job. I want gas to go down to $1.84 again. I want to be safe. I don't want our Department of Defense being drilled down and making us weak. I want our country back again, and we can get it back again. Romney Ryan, also Pete Hoekstra. Pete Hoekstra is very pro-life. Debbie Stabenow also is for, again, has opposed bans on partial birth abortion. Let's not forget everybody down the line. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and higher taxes, and she's for Obamacare, too. Mm-hmm. So
I know.
Yeah.
Well, when the government came in and started to be the baby daddy, because you look at it, but prior to the time when the government came in and said that we're going to take care of you, and they threw the black men out of the household, and what do? You have disrupted the family, which is the basic unit of any society. Right. And once you have an illegitimacy rate today of 72% in the black community, what does that tell you? Because since 1994, black married couples their poverty rate is less than 7%. So, if we keep the intact family, even though they can build up, they can work, and, they can increase their socioeconomic level if they stay together. But when you disrupt the family of the basic unit of society, what do you think you're going to have?
You look at the numbers and the white families versus black families, okay? If you have an intact family, mom, dad, children, whether white or black, the poverty rates are nearly identical. Yet you look at the poverty rates for African Americans, and they're so high, and you look at poverty rates for whites, and they're dramatically lower. And then you go, well, wait a second. How many fatherless or single-parent households are there in America? Well, for whites, it's in the 20s, but for African Americans, it's over 70%. Maybe, just maybe, it's not because America right now is positioned against black folks. Maybe, just maybe, the structure is positioned against single parenthood.
Well, Walter Williams has stated this. Thomas Sowell, Walter Williams, what is the lady's name? Kay James.
Okay.
Kay Coles James. They have all expounded. The Star Parker, she is a strong advocate for the family, and she's a strong advocate for being a woman who has had multiple abortions, who was on welfare, on the system. She found Jesus Christ And through Jesus Christ, she found that she could be independent. And we talk about self-esteem today. How can you feel self-esteem when you're dependent, totally dependent? And I think there is the mindset of some of those who are in the Democrat Party to keep us dependent, to keep us looking for a government handout, and then we won't be independent.
Buys votes.
Absolutely.
That's the last thing they want, is for us to be independent and free thinkers.
That's right.
It buys votes.
And the media really plays into that. There is a media bias, absolutely.
What,
and
really?
I know this is
Wow.
news to you.
Wow.
I'm bringing this great news to you. But that's what women, you have so little time because you're dealing with the kids. Even if you're a grandma, you could be dealing with children, grandchildren. You have a job and there's things that you have to do. You're going to the school. You want to be involved in your kids' life. So there's a limited amount of time that you can really educate. And so if you have the news on, then you're just going to be inundated. Even women's magazines, inundated with liberal agenda.
absolutely.
And if you don't make a pointed effort to get beyond that and to find out what the truth is, then you're going to believe those things. And you could believe half-truths as well to make you start to think, oh, maybe there is something to that. Maybe I
Right.
do. And it inflates the emotions as well. You start thinking, I'm not going to be taken care of. Romney's waging a war on women. What? I've got to make sure I'm okay. So I'm going to vote for the platform that says they're going to take care of us.
Hang on just a moment. We've got to take a quick break. We'll pick it up from there in just 2 minutes more with Sharon Williams, Angela Kolbeck, Connie Lalisher, Jan Fox, and myself in this 2012 election special edition of the Women's Forum. And more about the war on women and some other issues that we're going to dive into coming up. Producer. And we're going through a lot of different issues. Ladies, let's deal with the issue of Obamacare, if we could. Mitt Romney has declared that he will work hard and do everything he can to repeal Obamacare. For Obamacare to be repealed, it will obviously take Republicans taking control of the Senate, which is still possible to do. So let's just throw it out there. Anybody, why is it so important? I've shared my views many times with my listeners why I feel it's important that we overturn Obamacare. What do you guys say?
Could I jump in, Bob?
Please.
My background is a physician, and I want to read you one of the most recent polls here.
Okay.
A recent survey by the Doctor-Patient Medical Association Foundation reveals that 83% of physicians surveyed are thinking of quitting because of Obamacare, and 90% feel that the U.S. healthcare system is now heading in the wrong direction. So I first want to go ahead and let you know a lot of people have been duped with the AMA and the AARP coming out for Obamacare. The AMA currently, unfortunately, I and many other physicians believe that money trumped patients for both of these organizations. The AMA, as far as how many physicians belong to it, it's 17% or less of the physicians belong to the AMA, and the AMA currently is receiving a federal monopoly of $70 million for the CPT codes, and Obamacare will go ahead and extend that. The AARP, of course, sells private Medigap insurance, and they are going to, because of Obamacare, be getting, let's see here, it's $2.8 billion, I believe. Let me double check. I have the article. And so anyhow, when you listen to them and they say, I feel bad for seniors and patients just because the AMA and the AARP say they're for Obamacare. How the AARP made $2.8 billion by supporting Obamacare's cuts to Medicare. I'm just trying to say that money trumped patients in both of the cases, unfortunately.
Angela, now if Obamacare goes totally through in 13 and 14, will they be able to determine who gets what care? Like at what
Yes.
age you are? Like my mom's 80.
Exactly.
I'm worried about that.
That's right. And if you talk to seniors and they are hurrying up and getting their hips replaced or hurry up and getting their knees replaced, they know it's coming. And if, as you remember, as it just came out, and thank goodness, when the whole thing is implemented, they waited to implement this whole thing because they knew he'd never get elected again. But things are starting to come out now. And right now, for instance, we know $716 billion has been cut from Medicare to help fund the Obamacare. And even though over the next 10 years, we expect the number of seniors to go up. So if we're cutting Medicare by $716 billion and we're going to have more seniors, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
It's going to be rationing and denying of care for the patients. And I just wanted to kind of just sum it up in just two quick ways within it. There's a rationing board, and then there's also the enforcement board. The rationing board is called the Federal Coordinating Council for Comparative Effectiveness Research Federal Council. Now, comparative effectiveness research is based on the formula of approval or rejecting of treatment for patients based on, get this, the cost per treatment divided by the number of years the patient will benefit from the treatment. Of course, that's rationing.
Right.
And as of, I believe, January 1st, 2014, here this comes. The National Coordinator of Health Information Technology. This coordinator will be responsible for monitoring treatments to make sure doctors and hospitals are strictly following what the government deems appropriate and cost-effective, and to, quote, guide medical decisions at the time and place of care. So imagine this. Why do you think the doctors are leaving? How would you like to be a doctor? You studied, and you're going ahead, and you do want to do the best thing for your patient, and you got to put in your little code, and the government tells you what you got to do for your patient, and you know that that's not the best thing for your patient. Yet, if you don't do that, what happens? Well, here, what does it say? The stimulus, this is actually hidden in the stimulus bill, goes on to say that hospitals and doctors that are not, quote, meaningful users, end of quote, of the new systems will face penalties. This is huge, can be huge monetary penalties as well as even possibly imprisonment. But definitely they're going to be facing penalties. So what are they supposed to do? No wonder they want to leave medicine. What are they supposed to do?
Right. That's a good point.
And even on the financial end, why do voters believe that this government insurance is going to be free? We are going to pay for it.
There's got to be money coming somewhere.
Yes, we're going to pay for it.
You know what? I'm from Washington State. I grew up in Washington State, and my family still lives there. Now, Obamacare went into effect in January of this year, and my brother, who sustained a work injury years ago, has been on pain management for 15 years with the same doctor. And he goes in every couple months. It's not like he's abusing it. He's taking care of it. He's had a few operations, but all that can be done in the medical manner has been done. So he has to deal with a degenerative spine problem. It's not going to get better. There's nothing they can do. He's already had alternative pain methods, tried to deal with that. Nothing has worked. So he went to his doctor and said, listen, I'm just, the pain is increasing. Can you help me? And the doctor, who he's been with for 15 years, said, no, I cannot, because I am told that I have to wean you off of this medication. I cannot increase this. So he was very upset about it, because he and my brother-in-law have a great relationship. So he said, this is what I'm going to tell you to do. I'm going to give you a doctor's name in Idaho, who they are not under the Obamacare yet. So he said, you go there and they'll take care of you, because I cannot do it anymore, because I am being told what to do, but I'm the one that spent all those years and money going to medical school. So he was very upset of it as well. And here's my brother now sitting in pain because he cannot get the pain meds that he needs.
I'm telling you, as Obamacare becomes fully implemented in 2013, 2014, over the next few years, people are in for a huge wake-up call in a whole bunch of areas. And wait until they see, I mean, there are several middle-class tax increases that are built into Obamacare people haven't even seen yet. A lot of them haven't been implemented. There's 5 new ones being implemented in 2013 that most people don't even know about. Wait until employees get memos from their employers saying, oh, by the way, we're canceling health insurance. We no longer offer it. You're on your own. You got to go find your own. People are going, what? You're kidding me. Welcome to Obamacare. Or wait until they're forced to switch their insurance company, switch their doctors. They have to pay more. More money's coming out of their paycheck as a result of this. I mean, most of Obamacare has not kicked in yet.
And he was not forthcoming when he talked about not being in favor of the single payer healthcare system.
Oh, he totally lied about that.
In front of the SEIU employees, he told them, we won't get there overnight, but we'll eventually get there. When he tells John Q. Public, I'm not for single payer healthcare. So therefore, he told us a bald-faced lie. Not only that, you might recall the town hall meeting where this one girl asked him about her mother, who was elderly, and how she had a great quality of life, but if she might need some more extensive health care. And he said, well, maybe you'll have to give her the little blue pill. It's just unconscionable. And when you look at the number of IRS employees they're going to add to enforce this, what does that tell you? They're taking more money away from us.
Right.
And there is nothing the government runs efficiently. Absolutely nothing.
16,000 new IRS agents, I
Exactly.
believe. And when you have to ask yourself, why would we want to have we have the best healthcare system in the whole world. Why do we want to turn into a Canada or an England? I mean, they're
Right.
sending their people here for good care.
And we really want to turn ourselves
And people
into that.
say,
I know.
it's too expensive. There are many ways to go about it. Tort reform, buying insurance policies over state lines. I mean, there are so many wonderful things we can do. And as the United States of America, I mean, don't tell me that we have to ration and deny care to patients. That is not right.
All right. Hang on a second. We'll pick it up from there in a couple of minutes. More with the 2012 election Women's Roundtable Forum here on the Bob Dutko Show. Well, ladies, let's talk about the issue of the economy and debt. I don't need to tell you. Candidate Barack Obama said when he was running for office, he said George Bush has run up $4 trillion to our national debt. He said in 8 years, all by his lonesome, he said that's irresponsible and, his words, unpatriotic. Okay, so 8 years, $4 trillion is unpatriotic. President Obama has run up $6 trillion, okay, in 3.5 years. Yeah. What is that? And so that is a very real issue, the issue of debt as it applies as well to the economy. And I would think that, as we were talking about earlier, women who care a lot about security, you would think that this would be a security issue for them.
It's simple. He's not a good businessman. Romney's a good businessman. Yes. Romney's got the history of taking the private sector and building jobs, taking small businesses. And I see his passion, like your passion for medicine, Angela. Wow, it's amazing. And Obamacare, and I am very impressed with you. That's his passion about taking the private sectors and building businesses, getting people back to work. I haven't heard that in Obama in the 4 years he's been in office. Not one time has he said, I want to take you little people and help you build businesses and get you all back to work, because then we all pay taxes and it keeps us middle-class people, our taxes lower. And I'm impressed with his passion. That's why when I seen him, I think it was the second debate, when he was talking about that, I got excited for the first time with him. I'm like, wow, he really cares about us. He wants to get us all back to work.
Hope.
Yeah, thank you. That's the hope and change we need. We need to get back to work.
I'm not a numbers person, but when you look at how the government spends $100 billion more than it takes in each month, there's a problem there. And I believe Romney does have some solutions. Mm-hmm. And I love in one of his points that he wants to introduce 5 bills, and one of the bills is a fiscal sanity.
Right.
He's going to enact fiscal sanity. So that gives me hope. We need some sanity in that manner.
Right.
And I really like the point that he, in Massachusetts, was able to balance a budget, right? He had something like 80-some% of Democrats.
87% Democratic legislature.
Yeah, and he was able to do it. And here we have, with President Obama, for 2 years, the Democrats had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. All Democrats. Can't blame that on the Republicans. Not a budget. No budget. No. I mean, that's just, we need to get some fiscal order.
Right. Sharon?
Well, not only that, I don't think that President Obama has introduced any budget that has ever been taken up by the Senate. The Senate has not passed any budgets whatsoever.
Yeah, no Democrats. Even 0 Democrat votes on President Obama's budget. So the Republicans all voted no, but so did the Democrats.
So I think that's very telling. Not only that, when you think in terms of, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the term Cloward and Piven, where the Cloward and Piven were both 2 professors who have this strategy where we're going to get as many people dependent upon the government as possible, and then you overrun the system because there is no way you can sustain that kind of spending, and then the system collapses, and then you get to rebuild it in this socialist, what I believe, socialist platform that has been proposed here. So, again, I'm very concerned about the economy.
Right. Well, hang on a second if you would, because I want to address the Mormon issue head on. There's still Christians that say, I can't vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. How do we vote for a Mormon? How does that work? And so let's address that. And then afterward, we'll open up the phone lines. We'll let people call in and ask whatever questions they want to. So more of the Women's Political Roundtable. So let's deal, ladies, with the issue of Romney's Mormonism. Right? There are still Christians out there that are saying, can't vote for Romney, can't vote for a Mormon. I can't get past the Mormonism issue, and so therefore I'm just not going to vote at all, or whatever the case may be. What do you guys say to the Romney Mormonism issue?
Look at President Obama. I mean, for gay marriage, for abortion, you're going to vote for him?
Yeah, or people are going to say, well, I'm just not going to vote for anybody. Or I'm going to vote for a third-party unelectable candidate because as a Christian, I feel that it's wrong to vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. It's like I'm endorsing Mormonism somehow.
Well, if you look at the way that Mitt Romney has lived his life, everything about him exudes godliness. He seems to be a good father. He seems to be a good husband. He seems to be one who is involved and engaged in what's going on around him. And you don't hear of any scandal. I guess the worst thing he did was to have his dog's face in the wind as he was driving along the roadway somewhere. But
the dog probably loved
that. And unfortunately, my experience in dealing with the Mormon people, the way that they live their lives, typically is very, very godly. Unfortunately, we look at people who, so many of us who are Christians, sometimes we live less than Christ-like. And this is especially true when you look at Bill Clinton, for example. He has his Bible in one hand and Monica on the other,
But, I guess the thing is for me regarding the Mormonism issue, and I've talked about this many times, is that you're absolutely right in what you say, that Mormon people, and I've said this for years, I said this well before Mitt Romney was ever running for president, okay? Mormonism is a cult. Let's not kid ourselves. Let's call it the way that it is. Mormon doctrine is not biblical Christianity. So I don't think we go soft on that. But Mormon people, I've always said, by and large, tend to be very decent people who live lives very consistent with godly and biblical principles and values. And so for a Mormon to accept the true Jesus Christ of Scripture instead of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Jesus, there's not a whole lot of transition in the way that they live their lives. There's not a whole lot of transition in their worldview and their political views on average. And so Mitt Romney will govern more consistent with biblical principles and values. That doesn't mean that it's validating his Mormon doctrine. It does not. But it does mean that we hire a president based on the decisions that they'll make legislatively, the bills that they'll sign versus veto, the judges that they'll place, the way that they will govern, and the decisions and policies that they enact. That's why we hire a president, and Mitt Romney will do that in a way not perfect, but consistent with Christian principles and values, even though his own theology, I would argue, is not biblical Christianity, but a false Christianity. But guess what? So is black liberation theology, and James Cone and Jeremiah Wright and Barack Obama's, belief of what Christianity is too. So neither one of them have a sound biblical theology, but one of them does have, I would argue, biblically consistent political ideology, and that's Romney.
Yes, absolutely.
And he'll put those policies in place, the pro-life, the defense of marriage between a man and a woman, the freedom of religion, which we really need to keep right now. And I appreciate, I haven't really been involved really watching politics. My husband and I are kind of new to this, actually, but I don't know if you guys have seen the huge Billy Graham ads they've been putting in the newspaper. I don't think have they ever done that before? I
don't think they've made it as blatant as this, because this is
pretty darn blatant.
They don't say Romney's name, but it's pretty much vote for Romney.
I saw Franklin Graham on a talk show, and he said, "I voted for Romney." I mean, he came out and said it. So, and can you vote for a Mormon? He's got an article. Yes, you can vote for a Mormon. These are very biblically based people. I have no problem at all voting for Romney Ryan, being a born-again Christian. We need to get more biblical principles and policies back into our government.
Right.
I noticed on their website, too, that they had taken off of the list of cults Mormonism.
Yeah. Well, they didn't remove Mormonism from their list of cults. They just removed the whole section about cults.
Oh, okay.
So it's not that they're saying Mormonism is. It's not that they're saying Mormonism isn't a cult anymore. It's just they're saying, let's not talk about cults right now because we don't want to, as they put it, we don't want to affect the election in a way that this whole issue is being politicized from the left. They're trying to encourage Christians not to vote for Romney because he's a Mormon. So they're saying at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association, let's just take that part of our website off so that liberals are not able to use this as a means of attempting to manipulate Christians out of voting for Mormonism. A Mormon. They'll probably end up putting that back on the website.
And they will. They just didn't want to make it about that. And for me, that was wasn't part of the dynamic of my choice for voting for Romney, the Mormonism thing. It was about the very issues, Angela, that you were speaking about, because his belief system lines up with my belief system. The core beliefs that I want to see encouraged in America and put forth through legislation are the very same beliefs that he, even as a Mormon, has, because they have the same moral code that Christianity has.
Right.
You have to ask yourself, as a Christian, which candidate holds biblical values? Look at Obama's history. Look what he's done. He has taken this country down further and further, the dark road, and Romney isn't going to do that. And that's what we have to look at. I don't understand how a Christian can vote for Obama because of what his beliefs are, his values.
And I think Romney has proven himself to be a unifier. When he was the governor of Massachusetts, he dealt with the primarily Democrat House and Senate, but he was able to get legislation passed because he was able to.
He works with both sides.
He did work with both sides, and
Right.
I think that tells a lot about what he'll do on the federal, on the national level.
Yes.
Let's do this. I want to go ahead and open up the phone lines and give our listeners a chance to call in and join the discussion. Folks, it's kind of like a conservative version of The View. It's a women's forum going on today on the election, and so here's what we're doing. Phone lines are open. Call in right now.